Hi, my name is Ikra Khan. I'm here at the Women of the World Festival, WOW, in Southbank in London. I'm reporting for WORLDbytes, and I'm here to discuss what are the issues concerning women today.
I wanted to celebrate what women and girls are doing right around the world, and that's why it's a festival. And I also wanted to challenge the idea that we can all just let progress take care of itself, because I don't believe that's going to happen. And I wanted people to hear from all kinds of people, all kinds of backgrounds, all kinds of stories that will make people galvanized into saying, let's change the world for the better as quickly as we possibly can.
I came last year actually, and it was one of the highlights of my year. It was really inspiring weekend. You realise that feminism isn't a dirty word, and it isn't an issue that's narrowed down to one particular thing. It's so broad, and I think that's great because then it attracts different people that have other interest areas that they can link into issues around women.
We've come to listen to some talks on e-bullying and how to keep our children safe, basically.
There just needs to be an overall kind of societal understanding of how the right way to treat each other is. But I think if the state starts saying, oh, you definitely can't say this and you definitely can't say that, then we become quite limited in expressing our views and then won't have kind of open discussions because we'll have fear of what we're allowed to say and what we're not.
I'm interested in seeing the talk about neurotrash because I just would like to hear some evidence to back up my feelings about when people talk about behaviour being attributed to biology, and something to argue back when people constantly make arguments about behaviour being biologically determined.
I came to a festival called Being a Man, which is the first year that's run, and it's the twin brother, I suppose, of the Women of the World Festival, and it was fascinating. And I didn't know about this, but a friend told me about it, and I thought I should come. Yeah.
What do you think defines being masculine?
I think the definition of masculinity should ideally be really fluid. And I think if you start to try and define it, then there are men who will fall off one end or other of the scale. So I suppose I like to think that men and women can have a whole range of possibilities for themselves that aren't sort of limited because of their gender. I suppose my view on the neurosciences or on biological determinism is that, again, that I suppose that it fixes and limits people. And I think what's amazing about the human brain is its capacity to adapt and be moulded in all sorts of different ways. So I do know that there are loads of similarities between baby boys' brains and baby girls' brains.
So do you think we should completely erase the terms masculine and feminine? Do you think they're hindering our progress as being individual beings?
It's a brilliant question, and I don't know the answer. And I think I'm most interested in motherhood and fatherhood, and I think the fatherhood has been erased, actually. But I think that's an interesting challenge, and I wonder what possibilities it would open up if we didn't limit people, because I think we do by saying you are this and you are that. So perhaps the future is kind of android.
I'm going to go to see the men talk firstly, and then I'm interested in the feminism and privilege talk as well. I think that a lot more people need to accept the term feminism as not like such a negative thing. I feel like it's still such a taboo thing in society that we associate feminism with being like man-hating and like all this scenario when it's not actually about that. But then you can say that and it's not necessarily about equality either. In regards to the privilege issue, I feel like as much as you can say, oh, you're emphasising the differences, I feel like that's not necessarily a bad thing, and that as a white feminist I need to recognise that my privilege is something, like I'm recognising my privilege, I'm not diminishing other people for it. I'm just saying I know that I've got this privilege that you necessarily don't have.
I first heard about Malala coming, and I didn't really know about the festival in general, but I'm such a huge fan of Malala. And I first was brought to her attention when she came to America to speak with the Obamas, and I heard about her struggle and how she stood up for women's rights at such a young age, and that really inspired me as a developing woman to want to take a stand in my own community.
There sometimes can be a tendency of the West to sort of free ride onto initiatives like this. But the main thing is this WOW conference that's been held, a lot of the women who are coming are not coming with an ulterior motive of trying to gain extra votes, if it be Cameron, if it be Obama, by doing things like this and seeming that prima facie they are standing up for women's rights. The fact is, her effort is to try and reach the everyday woman, me, you, all the other women that came here today, the young girls, the elderly women who are here as well. She said, you will never talk to a politician and get a bad response on any of these issues. But actually, as Sylvia, what could I do to ensure that Malala's intention to further women's education is actually fulfilled?
What good do you think her message or her actions could have on the ground in Pakistan now that she's out of the country?
Well, I think actually it's had a positive, it's been more positive for the West than for the East, because it's kind of reasserted the West's identity that they're the do-gooders, that they're the ones out there to save the nation and save the world. There was also a boy called Mukhtar, and he was in Pakistan, and he actually died due to him protecting his classmates from a suicide bomber. But not much attention has been drawn to him. It's just been focused solely on the women, on females, that they're the ones in need, they're the ones who are oppressed, and they're the ones who are abused by Pakistani culture and by Islam, when actually not any attention has been focused on the fact that Taliban is the issue, and it affects both males and females.
The reality today is that people have the potential to have a voice
On any
subject, in any way, particularly with social media then magnifying their voice. So I think that what's fantastic is that we have all of this bubbling up, all of these individual ideas where some of them go nowhere, they don't get picked up, some do, and then you have change.
Well, I'm here from New York City, and actually from Harlem. I work at the world famous Apollo Theater, which is right on 125th Street in Harlem, and we're known for wonderful music venue. But I'm here because we are also looking at developing a global women's festival next March, at the Apollo Theater, because we not only do performing arts, but we also are entering into these conversations about really important issues, social and political issues that are of concern in our community.
What do you think are the major issues affecting women nowadays in the UK and also in the US actually?
I think, they've been talking a lot about the glass ceiling, hitting a glass ceiling within your own business, and that continues to be a conversation in the U.S. In terms of, what's happening on the internet, it's just a wide world that's just kind of bumping at us.
Well, 50/50 Parliament is a petition I've got going on change.org, and what we believe in is gender equality of representation in the House of Commons.
So Megan, you were mentoring today in the speed mentoring session. Can you just explain a bit about what it means to be a speed mentor?
It means in this specific context you give an hour of your time to spend 15 minutes with 4 people, listening to them bring a specific problem that they want to work on, and talking them through how they might find a solution.
So what qualifies you to give this kind of advice to these people?
I'm currently a director of a social enterprise that works tackling homophobia in football, and I've done a kind of number of jobs over the previous years that I think enable me to potentially share some of the things I've learned about what's worked for me, and potentially give that as a way of helping somebody else.
You were a mentee today, so how did you feel like it went for you?
It gave me a toolkit in order to plan and move forward, which is really, really exciting, and so I got all a bit tearful and emotional about it.
I found that I got really good balanced advice as a whole. So yes, it's a bit of a confidence booster, but I'm at the beginning of a project, and so that kind of thing is important. It's not that I can't get that kind of advice from people around me already, but you kind of feel like these people might have other knowledge or experience that the people around me won't have.
So what do you think are the big issues for feminism today?
Loads of issues, and it sort of really depends how it affects you. So if you are a mother who's trying to find that balance between having family life and focusing on your career, so that's probably more relevant to you. I just think it's about getting women involved and also introducing them to truly inspiring role models, because I think that every woman who wants to achieve something in life, it doesn't matter if she's 10 or 60, it's good to have those positive role models like Malala, for example, or like Vivienne Westwood. I mean, there is really no shortage of them, and try to see that, those women achieve something that, what can you do? Perhaps it doesn't take someone extraordinary, it just takes passion and believe in yourself.
What brings you to WOW today?
I'm here to speak about pornography, and I'm here representing ATSAC, which is the UK's professional association for pornography addiction. So my particular interest is getting the message across that pornography can be addictive and can be extremely damaging on people's lives.
So where do you stand on the censorship of pornography?
I'm not actually anti-pornography, I'm anti-addiction in the same way as I'm not anti-alcohol, but that doesn't make alcoholism a good idea. I think as long as porn is ethically produced and it's non-coercive and it's respectful, then I think that's fine.
The idea that some kind of groups have of men and women being intrinsically different, it's kind of how their brains work differently. What do you think of that?
I think that's absolute rubbish. In fact, I really enjoyed the word I heard coined for that yesterday. Well, coined a long time ago probably, but used yesterday, which was neurotrash. There's all this men are from Mars, women are from Venus. They suggested that you should go around sticking a sticker on those books saying this author is from Uranus, which is a pretty good line. I just don't think it's helpful to think of it in that way. There's more variation within the genders than between them.
I've just been sitting in a discussion about women at work, and the fact that when you're about 17 or 18 and you're thinking, what am I going to do and how am I going to manage it if I have a family? It's going to be really hard. The fact that men don't have to think like that, so a 17-year-old boy is not going to be thinking that.
Well, it's the most wonderful celebration of women, a celebration of women's achievements across all sectors, all spheres of life. But it's also about looking at some of the problems that still exist and some of the barriers to those achievements that women, not just in the UK, but all over the world still face. And that's what WOW is, and why we're doing it in Australia is because the issues that women face here are universal.
Well, I discovered feminism about 10 years ago, having been brought up as an Orthodox Jewish woman. There's a very well-developed apologetic about why there are differences within genders and different roles. And in the last year, I have initiated an Orthodox feminist movement in this country. If you look at, to borrow William James' concept of first-hand faith, which is the initial inspiration, thinking about a God who is genderless, who creates men and women in his own or her own image, whichever way you want to say it, that's, I cannot conceive of God having a preference towards men or women. But what happens to religion is a second-hand faith, where you now become an institutional religion. You have institutions, organizations, and hierarchies that they have to be kept in place. And very often those who are already in a position of power want to keep things in the same way, and so things don't change to reflect social reality.
You hesitate over the word feminist.
Yeah, it has sort of connotations, I think, around extremism almost, but I think there's a need still for women to try and assert themselves.
I came to see a hairstyles and hairdressers exhibition.
So what do you think are the biggest challenges for women today?
We're bombarded with images of what women are supposed to look like, what they're supposed to wear, how they're supposed to look, and I think that's one of the main challenges that we face.
I'm going to be talking about sort of brains and comedy, because I'm a neuroscientist and I work on human interaction and how our brains can deal with speech and other sorts of ways that we communicate with each other, and I'm very interested in laughter and behaviour around that kind of, how we behave around comedy.
As a neuroscientist, you know that recently there has been a lot of controversy surrounding our brains and the difference between women and men and how our brain is hardwired. What do you think of that?
I think it's largely very wrong. Almost one of the least interesting things about your brain is whether you're a man or a woman, because actually it has very little effect on your brain structure and on how your brain works. And where there are little differences, and they tend to be very small and very hard to replicate, people really talk them up. Basically, it's a cultural belief that there have to be differences, and academic papers will start with people saying, oh, well, men and women have to be different, let's look for the differences. And you think, well, do they? Are they? One of the problems why it's become widespread is we have generally seen a big increase in neuroscience, and hooray, neuroscience brains are brilliant and we've got these amazing new techniques for looking at them. I think this has been followed by what some people call neurobollocks, which is sometimes if you give a brain explanation for things, people think, well, it has to be real, that must be real proper science. And I think there have been a handful of people with very, very strong views on the topic, and they have been getting the papers and they've been publishing the books and telling the stories saying, you know, there are these differences between men and women. And it's a much less sexy story to say, oh, actually there aren't. You know, you're always arguing to the negative, you're always slightly on the back foot. So I have been trying to, I have like a talk I do for skeptics groups about problems with these sorts of accounts and why they are problematic and really the thinness of the evidence. Because sometimes something can be problematic, but if it's really there, we've got to account for it. But actually, the evidence isn't really there.
I was on a panel for the Fabulous Fashionistas show. There are 6 of us, average age 80, and what we've tried to show through fashion style is really that ageing can be positive experience rather than the negative one that this country portrays.
We published a book last year called Let's Start a Pussy Riot. We worked very closely with the group to try and make a book that was informed by what they did, but not necessarily just covered in balaclavas. You know, we wanted to take that essence and really bring it into the art world. So we have lots of contributions from different artists. Yoko Ono's in there, Billie Childish.
I mean, in this country, we're relatively well off, but that doesn't mean that, you know, everything is great for women. I was listening before I came out to a debate about domestic violence, and apparently 1 in 3 women is still subject to domestic violence. So if women in this country think that, you know, you don't need to be a feminist anymore, they're living in cloud cuckoo land.
I'm actually a personal stylist, so my first port of call was the Viv Westwood talk, which was obviously quite interesting for me. I wanted to hear about sustainable fashion and climate change, and just generally, I'm still reeling from it. It was really, really inspirational.
Me, as a Primark shopper, I was wondering what you thought about that, about cheap clothes.
I don't believe it's realistic that people will never buy anything new. I think we should be more considerate about how we use what we already have.
But isn't it good that we can now afford to have several pairs of shoes, several pairs of trousers, and be able to afford that?
I don't know if I would say that it's good that we're able to afford it, and I don't know if we are able to afford it or if we just spend and spend and consume and consume.
I'm a comedian and I do a political comedy show called My Professional Opinion, which is about going on TV and radio debate shows and arguing with idiots, really, from right-wing politicians to homophobes, sexists, all that kind of stuff. So I'm doing my show about that. I came to the WOW Festival 2 years ago and was in a debate about vajazzling with Dawn Porter, the TV presenter, and I've just been on a panel talking about bodily autonomy and abortion rights and female genital mutilation and all that kind of stuff. So I'm here to talk and to dish out my professional opinion.
I was asked here as a mentor. I've actually done a lecture here before because my background is I'm a senior lecturer at St Martin's College of Art and Fashion, and I've just finished now doing a mentoring session.
Do you think it really works?
I think it probably brings quite a lot of clarity to people. Sometimes they already know the answers, they just need to hear it from someone else who they maybe don't have any kind of relationship with previously. You quite often will talk to family and friends. It's quite nice to just get a really objective opinion, and everyone has really different backgrounds, so you get a really varied opinion as well. So I think it does work. It's kind of weirdly parallel to speed dating in that you feel like you could meet anyone and everyone, but actually you're meeting nobody really. So it's quite intimate, the mentoring. I think that can be really helpful without it being personal.
When I came last year, I was in a job. My job was fine, and my life was kind of ticking along. But I saw all these amazing women, and I just thought, I've got to be more like them, and I've got to be more successful because I've got the potential to do it. And it really gave me the confidence to go out and start changing what I was doing. So a year on, I've come back and I'm now studying for an MA at Central St Martin's. I got a scholarship for it, and I'm doing loads more stuff, and my life's just much more exciting and positive and feminist, and I really do think that the WOW Festival really gave me the confidence to change all of that.